Sure. So yeah, today I'm going to be talking about next generation private multi-signature wallets, which is a terrible name, I think, for a talk. Sounds very boring. I tried other options like, I don't know, future of Bitcoin wallets or better tools for better multi-signature wallets. They all sounded kind of lame to me. But really the goal of today's talk is just to show how new tools that are being developed kind of behind the scenes are going to really be helpful for the next generation of Bitcoin wallets that are going to hit the market. So how newer wallets that we'll see in the following couple of years are going to be improved thanks to these new tools that are being developed. A little bit about me. I generally call myself an independent Bitcoin developer, meaning that I work full-time on Bitcoin stuff, and I'm not really employed by any company. So I generally work with sponsorships or grants from other companies that allows me to do this open source stuff. I'm currently working on BDK. I've been working on that for the past 5 or 6 months, I would say. And I'm going to talk about BDK more later on in the talk, but it's basically, BDK stands for Bitcoin Dev Kit, so it's like a development kit for making Bitcoin wallets that should be fairly easy to use and understand. Previously, I've worked at BHP Network, which is a kind of a small consultancy based in Milan, consultancy company based in Milan, and Blockstream, which I think most of you know. So yeah, overview of the talk. The first part is basically like a description of what type of wallet exists today and their trade-offs in general in terms of security, in terms of also privacy in a way, but that's going to be we're going to expand more on that on a later section. The privacy of existing wallet, this is the next section that will basically analyze each type of wallet and the characteristics in a way in terms of privacy. And then what can we improve today on these wallets? So what can we do to make better wallets with the protocol, the Bitcoin protocol we have today, and then future Bitcoin protocol upgrades that can improve that even more. So the first thing is just a matter of developing, of writing code, and the other one is also a bit more like a controversial social thing in a way. Improvements to Bitcoin are always kind of controversial, but I'm going to just highlight how this can also be very helpful for privacy specifically. So yeah, let's say you are a Bitcoin user today, average non-technical person. It's very likely that you use a BIP39 single-sig wallet. BIP39 is like the standard for mnemonics, so the vocabulary of mnemonics and how these words are put together to at the end derive a master secret. And you probably have a mnemonic written somewhere if you've done things right. The advantage of single-sig wallets is that they are very, very easy to use. And there are many options to choose from. So this is good because you can find the right wallet for you. Different wallets, they always make different choices and they have different trade-offs. And if you have many options to choose from, you can choose the one that is exactly right for you. And just to name a few in no particular order, I think these are probably a bit most popular ones. Wasabi, Samurai, Electrum, these are all single-sig wallets. There are a ton of them. I couldn't mention all of them here, but yeah. So now you should ask yourself, how can you lose money with a single-sig wallet? So this is a very important question when you make a new wallet, but not only Bitcoin wallets, also if you generate a new GPG key or whenever you have to manipulate sensitive secrets, you should ask yourself what can go wrong. And in the case of single-sig wallets, probably the first thing that comes to mind is an hacked device. So you have your device on your phone and your phone gets hacked and somebody can steal your funds. You can kind of mitigate that with other wallets, but then you move into another concern of supply chain trust and this other wallet like honeypot to steal bitcoins and this kind of stuff. So it's always a trade-off. Air-gapped devices, I think they're good because you can have general purpose devices like an old phone, and you can install an app that handles keys on this phone. So this is also a good trade-off if you are afraid of your main device getting hacked. But also other ways you can lose funds is just you forget the passphrase if you encrypt your BIP39 mnemonic with an additional passphrase for security. This is especially popular, I would say, with some other wallets where they really recommend to use an extra mnemonic, an extra passphrase to encrypt your mnemonic for additional security, and you could forget the passphrase and you're done. Also, you hide the mnemonic too well, and you can't find it anymore, so you've lost your funds like that. Or you can try to make multiple copies to mitigate that, but then you increase the risk of theft because you have like multiple copies of the same mnemonic in multiple places, and if even just one of these places is compromised, you lose all your funds. Or also, on the other side, you don't hide the mnemonic well enough. Even if it's just in one place, somebody could find it and steal your funds. So there are multi-signature wallets. They kind of mitigate some of these issues that single-sig wallets have. And the definition, basically, of multi-signature wallets is just a wallet where you have to make more than one key in order to spend Bitcoin from that wallet. And this more than one could be all of the keys you have. So you can have like 5 keys, and you need to sign with all of the 5 keys, or even a threshold, like a 3 or 5 of the keys need to sign in order to spend from the wallet. And these type of wallets, they kind of mitigate the risk of a single point of failure, the fact that with single signature wallet, you have one spot where the key exists, and if I can attack that spot, being it like the mnemonic written somewhere or even like a device, if I can attack that spot, I can steal your funds. While instead, with multi-signature wallets, you have different devices, different keys are spread around in different places, so it gets a bit harder to attack somebody that is properly using multi-signature wallets. The problem with that is that there are not so many options today to choose from, much less than there are single signature wallets. So you're kind of forced to maybe use a wallet that is not like the exact thing you would like to have. It's not the perfect thing for you, but there are no other options, so you just have to use it. Some wallets, just to mention them, Electrum, Bitcoin Core. Bitcoin Core can also be used for single-sig wallets, but I think it's a bit more not so user-friendly, so I think there are better options for average users. But here, in the case of multi-signatures, there are really not that many options, so Bitcoin Core, I think, is a very valid option. Also, fully noded as Spectre. These are not technically like other wallets, separate wallets. These are like remote controllers for your Bitcoin Core node, so they are kind of part of Bitcoin Core. And there's also Casa, which is like a custom solution for keeping your Bitcoin secure using multi-sigs. Again, you should ask yourself, how can I lose my money if I'm using multi-signature wallets? The threats are basically the same, very similar to the single-sig wallet, but it depends. It becomes more of a function of your setup because you can choose a threshold, and if you choose a very high threshold, you probably lower the theft risk because an attacker would have to steal more keys in order to steal your funds, but you increase the chance of an accidental loss. So you lose, if you make like an n of n, you can just lose one key and you've lost all your funds. So you have to kind of balance that because on the other side, if you have a low threshold, it's the opposite. So you have many, many keys, and for an attacker, it's enough to steal a very low number of these keys in order to steal your funds. And also, there's another thing you should keep in mind is that more keys make transactions larger. So if you have like a very high number of keys, I think the limit is like 15 keys, or also a very high threshold, like an 8 out of 8. These transactions are going to get very, very big. You pay a lot of fees, and also it's not good in general for like scalability of the system if everybody is using very big multi-signature wallets. And I think there's like a really interesting kind of wallet, which is time-locked multi-signature wallets, which are kind of in between. So it's I think it's a like really good trade-off. It's like a multi-signature wallet, but with the threshold that can lower over time. So this kind of mitigates the fact that with a multi-signature wallet, you have to choose one threshold and you have to stick with it forever, basically, as long as you're using the wallet. If you throw time locks in there, you can have like a very high threshold initially, and you can use both absolute and relative time locks based on basically what's your use case. And you can probably afford to use fewer keys with an higher threshold because worst case, if you lose one of the keys, you just have to wait a little while. And after the time locks expire, you can spend with less keys and maybe migrate to a new wallet. The problem with that is that there are even less like consumer options that people can use, like products that people can use. The only one is probably green, even though it's not really meant to be like a general purpose time-locked multi-signature wallet. It is very limited in terms of how many keys you can have and who has these keys. So it's like basically just a 2 of 2 where you have one key and the server has the other one, and that's it. You can't have like a 2 of 2 with 2 keys that you own. But it uses time locks, so it kind of falls in this category. And why there are no other options? I mean, I don't know, just speculation. I think for once there isn't or there wasn't like much demand for this kind of stuff, so people were not really aware that this existed and how this could be used. And also I think they are fairly hard to make. So for a new developer, a new Bitcoin developer, it's easy to just make a single-sig wallet. There are plenty of libraries, plenty of examples and stuff to choose from to make your own wallet. While instead for that, you basically have to start from scratch. And that's pretty hard considering you also have to handle like very sensitive key material. So this was like the first section, just like an overview of which wallet exists. Now I'm going to start talking more about privacy. And by privacy, I mean privacy is like a very complicated topic, but I mean I divide privacy basically into separate categories. So the first one is privacy in regards or like towards the service provider of your wallet, meaning like there are wallets that collect your XPubs to basically give you the balance, so you don't have to compute it yourself. This is a very bad privacy practice. This is very bad to do. And this is what I mean basically with privacy towards the service provider. And this doesn't depend in any way to basically the type of wallet it is. So it could be a single-sig wallet, a multi-sig wallet, doesn't really matter. This is just depends on the way the wallet has been built to interact with the blockchain. So this is all up to the developer to choose which way to use. On the other side, there's another type of privacy, which I call like transaction fingerprinting or privacy to the public, which basically means if you have a wallet that makes transactions that are very, very easy to recognize, and you are the only one in the world using that wallet, your privacy is very bad. Because even if you use like your own full node, you do everything right, I can still like look at the blockchain and I see some transactions that are very, very weird. They like stand out from the others, and I know this is probably you. And this doesn't depend on the way the wallet is built. This is just the type of wallet that determines that. So especially, it's best for single-sig wallets because there are like many people using single-sig wallets, so you kind of mix in the crowd, you're just one of them. But if you go into very specific like custom scripts with time lock, with very specific time locks, you start to lose a lot in terms of privacy. And unfortunately, there's not much we can do about that today. We can do something with future Bitcoin upgrades, and I'm going to talk about that later on in the talk. So now I made this table, which I know is going to be like a bit controversial. This is not in any way a recommendation of which wallet to use. I just wanted to make it like make a graphical way to show what I'm trying to say. So if you, and these are just a few examples, there are obviously a ton more. I just had to, I picked the one I mentioned before. So the idea is that you can, I wanted just to show that you can see in the central column, so the provider privacy, it looks kind of random. So what I want to show is that if you have a single-sig wallet, it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to have a bad provider privacy. So you can build single-sig wallets in a good way and in a bad way, and the same is for multi-signature wallets and for time-locked multi-signature wallet. These are just choices the developers made, and they could have totally just made another choice and have a more private wallet. While on the other hand, the other column, you can see like a pattern. So you can see that it's good for single-sig wallets, a little bit worse for multi-signature wallets, and it's very bad for time-locked multi-signatures because you have a lot of like room. You can make a lot of, you can tweak a lot of parameters, and you make your wallet very unique, and you make it very, you make it basically stand out a lot in the crowd. So again, now I'm going to talk about what can we improve today. So this is mostly this like central column. How can developers build better wallets that are more private and that collect less data? I'm also just going to say one thing. So Casa is red here because it's closed source, as far as I know. So I don't know, maybe it's like the most private wallet, but I couldn't like see the code, so I just I had to do it like, to give it like a bad score. But this is not. I'm not trying to say don't use Casa, don't use green. I'm just trying to kind of highlight this like these differences between the two types of privacies. So why do we need better tools? In general, I don't think wallet developers like enjoy making wallets with bad privacy. I just think that it's very hard to get that thing right. So if we make better tools for developers, we make it easier for them to build better wallets. And they're probably going to choose, they're going to end up basically making better wallets for the end users. In general, I think it should be very, very helpful to simplify dealing with critical parts of the Bitcoin protocol. So if you think about it, most wallets are just trying to do the same things over and over. So they do transaction creation, they do coin selection, they do signing, they do all this kind of stuff are basically repeated. Everyone has to make them. And it's better if we can like abstract these parts so we can collect these in some like very well peer-reviewed libraries. And then for you as a developer, you focus more on your product than just doing these things over and over again. And also, I think this ultimately means that there are more options for the end user. So if it's easier to make like a multi-sig or a time-locked multi-signature wallet, I think more developers would actually make them, which means that the end user has more options to choose from, and it's easier for them to pick like the one that is exactly right for them. So the first like tool I want to talk about, I really don't want to make this too technical, so I'm just gonna do like a very high-level overview of these tools. The first thing, which I think is really, really nice, especially for complex multi-signature wallets, is Miniscript. Basically, Miniscript lets you write spending policies very easily, which means that you don't have to play with the Bitcoin scripting language, which is pretty complicated. So for you as a developer, even if you're not like a very experienced Bitcoin developer, you're just a normal developer, you can pretty easily use Miniscript to build like a time-locked multi-signature wallet. While on the other hand, it is much harder to do that like from scratch. It's also one thing that is very interesting. It optimizes these scripts for space. So in general, if you try to do like complex condition, you have a ton of ways to do that. And you try maybe manually to just pick the optimal one, but it's very hard to do that. While instead Miniscript is like a compiler. It's like basically for developers, it's like writing a high-level language or like low-level assembly code. It's very easy to use, and it optimizes them for space, which ultimately means that the end user pays less fees and has a lower like on-chain footprint. It also, specifically here I'm talking about the Rust version of Miniscript. It provides like some really nice tools to work with generalized scripts. So for you as a developer, again, you don't have to play with Bitcoin scripts. You can just ask that tool to do that for you. And an example of a product using it is Revolt, which is like a vaulting Bitcoin vault protocol. They use Rust Miniscript, and then they're building everything else on top of it. But it's very helpful for them because they have to make like a 404, if I remember correctly, it's like a 404 with some pre-signed transaction that sends to other types of scripts. And so it's very easy for them to use that to handle all of the like complex Bitcoin scripting part. This is just like an example, just to show what a Miniscript spending policy looks like. And again, it's not like something that the average user can do, and I'm not expecting the average user to do that. But for a developer, it's very easy to write down something like that says, you need to sign with this key, and then either with that key or wait a time lock. I think this is the representation of the Blockstream Green like script. So you have the user key always has to sign, and the other key, which is the server key, can sign, or you can wait a time lock, and then just with the user key, you can take the funds. And on the next level, there's BDK, which is the project I've been working on, which is basically not just a tool to work with scripts, but it's like a full Bitcoin wallet implementation. And we're really trying to make it like very, very modular. So the idea is that for you as a developer, you can choose one of the default modules and just build a wallet with these pieces, like put them together and make a wallet. Or you can also choose to like rewrite some of these modules yourself if you need like some kind of specialized like behavior. It uses Miniscript internally, so this basically means that it supports generalized scripts. So with this BDK wallet, you can do like a single-sig, you can do a multi-sig, you can do time locks, you can do all this kind of stuff. And from the user, or I mean the developer perspective, using this library, it's all the same thing. So it's basically the same flow, create a transaction and sign it, and the coin selection is done automatically, and you can bump the fees and everything. All the logic is in there. And the goal for BDK is basically to make a library that almost anybody can use. So if you need to do something that touches Bitcoin transaction in any way, not only some kind of wallet, also for some kind of backend service or something like that, you can just use BDK, and you can either just use it as it is out of the box or tweak it basically the way you need it. And yeah, it adds all these functions on top of Miniscript. So as a developer, the goal is for a developer just make it focus on high-level problems, not low-level Bitcoin stuff. Also because it's like a waste of everybody's time to just keep doing the same stuff over and over again. It's just better to have one well-peer-reviewed library and use that one. Just a practical example. Again, you should take this with a grain of salt because it's not really a one-to-one perfect comparison. But I'm pretty familiar with GDK, which is the Green Development Kit, which is the library that is at the base of the Green Wallet, because I used to work on this stuff. So as a kind of a challenge to myself, while I was developing BDK, I tried to make a clone of that. So just redo the exact same thing in a different language, so there are many things that cannot be compared directly. But the idea is that for you as a developer, you want to remake Green, you can go everything from scratch route, you have to write a ton of code, and not only a ton of code in terms of line, which is, this is not too bad, it's also a ton of very critical code. So it's like signing code, and even things like generating an address. It might seem trivial, but you have to be very careful, because if you generate the wrong address, then you basically lose your funds. You can send funds to an address which is basically unspendable. So again, it's really not a one-to-one comparison. NIRG, which is this clone of GDK, it doesn't support many of the things that GDK supports, but most importantly, these 718 lines are mostly like glue code, the way I call it. So it's like code to authenticate with the backend and make an API call to the backend to get a signature. It's not sensitive code like Bitcoin code. So for you as a developer, you can go the BDK route, and you write much less code, and at least not sensitive code. Even if you're not a very big, like a huge Bitcoin expert, you can probably make something like that, which is pretty cool, I think. And now, this was the what can we improve today. So all of these things I mentioned, they can be done today. We don't need any kind of like Bitcoin protocol upgrade. It's literally just a matter of sitting down and actually developing stuff. And now I'm going to be talking a little bit about what does the future look like. So what can we do to make Bitcoin even better going forward in terms of Bitcoin upgrades? And specifically, I'm speaking about privacy, because I think already with the current like Bitcoin scripting system, I think you can do very, very powerful things. So I don't think we are very limited in that sense. We don't need really any extra feature to that. But we need to increase privacy a lot, because if you do, as I was saying before, if you do like custom scripts, that has a pretty bad privacy on chain. So I think we should work on that. And specifically, I'm going to be talking about the Taproot upgrade, which is currently being reviewed. And I think it really improves the public privacy. So that was the last column in the table I was showing you before, considerably, at least in the average case. So that there could be the worst case scenario when the privacy is not as good, but in the average case, I think it is much better compared to what we have today. So before we talk about Taproot, I'm going to talk about Schnorr Signature without going into the crypto details, because I don't even know them myself. So just high-level overview of these, which is the Schnorr Signature upgrade is also coming together with the Taproot upgrade. It's like a big part of it. And the idea is that Schnorr signatures are just like a different signature scheme compared to the CDSA, which is what is currently being used in Bitcoin. They were patented until February 2008, so we don't really know why Satoshi didn't use them, but probably the best guess is just that they were not very widely known and understood because they were patented. And so probably the easiest way was just to use a CDSA, which was much better understood, much more. There were many more like tools to work with these kind of signatures available at that time. And the very, very cool thing about Schnorr signatures is that they support key aggregation, which basically means that if you have like two public keys, A and B, you can combine them in a way that you get one single public key again. So it's not two public keys, you have just one. But in order to sign for that public key, you have to make two separate signatures, one with the private key of A, one with the private key of B, and then you can aggregate them together, and you have a valid signatures for the aggregation, like A plus B. This is very, very nice, first of all, for multi-signatures in general, because you can have multi-signatures that end up looking like a single signature on chain, so nobody looking at the blockchain can know that signature was made by multiple parties. It just looks like a single signature, which is very, very nice for privacy. And also, I think you can support even like threshold signature with more complex like crypto setup, but even just being able to do an N of N with that privacy guarantee, I think it's great. And Taproot builds on top of that. I think Taproot can be summarized in a way as having an address that is both a single sig and a more complex type of address at the same time. So the pay-to-pub key addresses or pay-to-pub key hash is what we use today for single signature addresses. It's basically an address that says, make a signature with this public key and you can spend the funds from here. While the pay-to-script or pay-to-script hash type of addresses are everything else. So everything else you have like more complicated, you express it as a Bitcoin script, and then you pay to that Bitcoin script, and then you have to satisfy this Bitcoin script in order to move your funds. And now you have to choose, it's like either one or the other. And when you choose the pay-to-script hash type of addresses, when you go spend, you have to reveal the full like Bitcoin script. You have to reveal all the conditions that were in the script, even if you're not using them. So if you have a script that has like a few possible branches with like ORs, logical ORs, you can use this one or that other one. You still have to reveal all of them. They will go publicly on chain. This takes up a lot of space, and it's very, very bad in terms of privacy. Because again, everybody can see these conditions and they can link together transactions that have similar conditions. They can try to assume that they're probably part of the same wallet. So yeah, pay-to-public key hash is what we use currently for single sig. With Taproot, we will actually use these for multi-signatures too, because of what I was talking about before. So the fact that you can have individual keys, you can aggregate them, and you can make one single key, which is now an aggregation of multiple keys. And then you can also attach like extra conditions that are not revealed immediately. So for like an external observer, what they would see is just like a single sig address, basically. But inside that, there are extra conditions that have been like encoded in a way. And if you need to use those conditions whenever you go spend from that address, you reveal this condition and show everybody that they were actually embedded in the address. So you didn't make them up at the last minute. And yeah, I think the base idea, the idea at the base of Taproot is just that most of the time, especially when you have like multi-party protocols, most of the time the protocol goes fine. Everybody agrees that the protocol went fine. So if it's like a trade or something like that, and there's no need to use the safety clauses, like the backup clauses where, I don't know, like Alice and Bob are doing something together and Alice needs to get funds back. Most of the time you don't need that, and it's kind of a shame with P2SH or pay-to-script hash addresses, because these conditions are always there even if you don't use them. When instead with Taproot you can hide them completely if the protocol goes well, or you can only reveal the like little parts that you've used and not the full the full conditions, which is also pretty good in terms of privacy. And just to make an example, there's definitely a better way to make this specific example, but I just wanted to give you like an idea of how this thing works. We can assume we have Alice and Bob, and Alice wants to sell Bitcoin to Bob. I don't know if it's a good financial decision, but she wants to do it, so we let her do it. The idea is that Alice can create this Taproot address where the public key part is her public key and Bob's public key joined together. So it's basically multi-sig, a 2 of 2 multi-sig for the public key part. And then for the script, she can use like whatever other condition she wants, and in this case she will have a 2 of 3 with her key, Bob's key, and a third party that basically acts as an escrow in this protocol that can like arbitrate between the two and just decide who should get the funds in case something goes wrong. Then Alice can send Bitcoin to that address. If everything goes smoothly, Alice receives her, I don't know, fiat money. She says, all right, so I've received my money, everything went right. I will sign a new transaction that moves the funds from this like weird address to just Bob's address. Bobs will also sign it, they combine their signature, and they just spend using the public key way. So this on-chain would look like a single-sig wallet, basically making a transfer. So you send to this single-sig wallet and you spend from the single-sig wallet, and nobody knows what was like going on behind the scenes. Then if B or Bob doesn't pay, I don't know, like fiat money back to Alice, Alice can reveal the script and ask the escrow to sign using the other way. So Alice herself can sign, and the escrow, I don't know, will probably look for some kind of proof from Alice, will contact Bob, whatever we do, the checks he needs to do, and then he says, all right, I'm fairly sure Bob didn't pay, so I will give you your money back. The escrow signs, Alice signs, these two signatures are enough to satisfy the 2 of 3, so they can still spend using the other branch. And this on-chain, you would see that on-chain. So you would see that something went wrong and somebody had to use this 2 of 3. Potentially there could be even other more complex condition that would not be revealed. But in that case, something would show up. But this is, again, like a worst case scenario. So if everything goes smoothly, this is just a single sig transaction, which means very low fees, very high privacy, and everything. And obviously, if on the other end, like Bob pays and then Alice refuses to sign the transaction that moves the money to Bob and just Bob, Bob can do the same thing. So Bob can ask the escrow to sign in his favor, and again, the escrow will, I don't know, like ask Alice and check. In this case, it's actually pretty easy. If there's no signature from Alice, it's clear that Alice doesn't want to cooperate, so he will cooperate with Bob to recover his funds. So yeah, I think we are pretty much at the end here. Conclusion, I would say Bitcoin tools are improving constantly. I saw like people on Twitter complaining a little bit about the fact that the Bitcoin world is kind of stagnating in a way. It's not really changing that much. I think maybe that can actually be true compared to a few years ago, but I think definitely there's a lot going on kind of behind the scenes that hopefully one day will hit the market. Also, finally, there are a few other things that I couldn't mention right now, but I think it's very good to see the ecosystem finally converging on a few good standards. So PSBT, above all, the fact that you can have like different wallets that can cooperate with each other very easily. This makes it very easy to do like multi-signature wallets, because you can have, it's actually probably a good practice to have different wallets to mitigate the risk of one wallet, like one specific piece of software getting hacked. So you can have multiple wallets, different ones, hardware wallets, whatever. They can all sign individually, and then you can combine the PSBTs and have one just final transaction. Hopefully, developers will start using these tools and make better wallets for everybody. I think this is going to take a while, probably, like a couple of years, but eventually I think they're going to hit the market. Also, Taproot is great. I saw on Twitter people kind of complaining about, not really complaining, but just like they couldn't understand why would I want to support Taproot? Why would I want to support this soft fork to include Taproot? And hopefully this presentation gave these people like at least one use case, because there are probably many, many more that I can even think about. But for this use case, Taproot is great in terms of privacy. It lets you make very complex wallets with, for the best case, and unless you hit like very, very specific cases, and they're like very, very private, very, very scalable, which is good. And yeah, I think this is it. If you have any questions, we have like 10 minutes. Yeah.
Seems like dark question, so please go ahead.
Regarding the tools that you were describing, this Miniscript or BDK, they are still they are still under development, or that, I mean, they are not yet used by any real wallet, or are there any plans to be used? Or?
Yeah, so Miniscript, I think, is at least the Rust version, because this is the one I'm most familiar of. I think this is out of beta, so I think it's like production ready, but I don't know any production tool already using it. So there are people using them, so it's very, very early still. For BDK, it's still not really like production ready. I have no idea how long it's going to take, probably a few more months. So we're already like encouraging people to try it out, because there are a lot of bugs that these people find, because especially when you go with like very complex scripts, you can't really think of any case. So it's good to have people that come, they try them out, and they report issues. So yeah, the answer is for Miniscript, the tool itself is probably production ready, not really any product using it. And for BDK, it's still like beta. You can try it out, but it's not. I wouldn't recommend using it like with real money. Yeah.
Thank you.
So one more question over there.
Thanks. Hi, ALEKOS. I have a question about what you called public privacy in your presentation. So wallet fingerprinting, obviously you were highlighting how having custom scripts makes the wallet profoundly less private in the sense that it has a smaller anonymity set, an example of green, for example. But have you thought much about like randomizing in the context of wallet fingerprinting? It's an interesting topic that's come up from some quarters. Like, I mean, the thing is that if you wanted to have your wallet not be fingerprintable, you've got a huge problem on your hand. You've got to deal with, the transaction, even like the end version, the end lock time. It's not just the scripts. Obviously, the scripts is a huge one, but there's tons of other, even things that aren't actually like as obvious, like UTXO selection can give away which wallet it is. So it's really an almost impossible problem to solve. But I just wondered if you'd thought about, because I know some other people have thought about, can we at least partially help or address this problem by using techniques of actually randomizing what our fingerprints are rather than trying to homogenize and make everyone have the same fingerprint, which, as you point out, because you need functionality specific to your wallet, you can't really do that.
Yeah, so I haven't really thought about it myself. I know, yeah, I was very much like oversimplifying here, so that's definitely not the only thing that allows you to like fingerprint a specific wallet. Here I was mostly talking about not fingerprinting a type of wallet, but like a specific person, because if a person can have like a lot of room to play around with scripts, I don't know, a person could decide to have like a very weird time lock, like 1 day and a half that nobody else uses. So you can fingerprint, like all of these transactions are from the same wallet in the sense of the same application, but you could even, with this is even worse, you can actually like pinpoint the one user of this wallet. So in terms of that, I've been doing some stuff on BDK. So for instance, on BDK, we try to support like randomizing output order, inputs and outputs ordering. Also the BIP69, I think, lexicographical ordering, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I think it's pretty hard. It probably require like some proper research to see like what wallets do, what different wallets do that make them stand out, and then try to reproduce the same behavior, and then you can like randomize and do one transaction looking like a Wasabi wallet and one transaction looking like something else. So with BDK, we would like to do something like that. So in general, you have like a lot of flexibility on the way the transaction is created. You can choose this specific time lock. You can choose a specific end sequence. You can choose all this kind of stuff. So if somebody or us, we do like a proper research that we could try to have something that takes a transaction and kind of changes it a little bit to look like one specific wallet, and then you can randomize it for every transaction you make. So it's definitely something that I think is interesting, because even if you use Taproot, you still have those potential lacks of privacy. So you need both for like a very, very publicly private wallet. So yeah, I haven't really thought about it, but it's definitely something we should try to do in the future, I think.
Do we have any more questions?
Thank you for your talk. You also talked about Taproot, and yeah, I love it. Thank you so much that you mentioned that. And so I wanted to ask you, not sure if you mentioned that, whether you support activation of Taproot by BIP8?
Which BIP to use to activate? I honestly have no idea. So I've read a lot of discussion on that. I don't know what's the best one. Like for me personally, I like Taproot, so I would say go for the one, I don't remember which BIP it is, the one that at the end just forcibly enables it. So even if the miner don't agree, it enables it. But this is just my opinion because I like Taproot, and I can also imagine there are other people that don't like it. So I really don't know. I don't know what's the best answer here. It's probably more of a social thing than a technical issue. So I don't know. I don't think there's a good answer for that.
Any more questions? Just one more.
Can you please re-explain why Bitcoin Core you don't have public privacy for multi-sig?
Yeah, so this just means that if you have like a multi-sig with a very weird threshold, like you do a 2 of 8 that nobody else is using, if I look at the transaction on chain and I look at all the transactions that are a 2 of 8, I can restrict like a lot the anonymity set in a way. So this is not due to the way Bitcoin Core does it or the way Electrum does it. It's just the fact that if you leave the user freedom to choose these parameters, they could choose like very, very specific parameters that they only use themselves. So then you can identify this transaction probably belongs to this user just for this reason, even if everything else is done right. So even if you coin join and everything. So yeah, this is why. It's not inherent to Bitcoin Core itself. It's just if you use a weird number of key and threshold that nobody else is using.